decades, you had the disparity in penalty between crack and powder cocaine, whereas 5 grams of crack cocaine would give you the same 5-year sentence as 500 grams of powder cocaine, despite the fact that we're talking about the same drug. We still have racial profiling, we still have the school to prison pipeline. We still have egregiously lengthy mandatory minimum sentences where it doesn't matter about the role of the person in the offense. It doesn't matter that college student Kemba Smith, experienced domestic violence at the hands of her drug dealing boyfriend. It doesn't matter that she was a church-going girl. It doesn't matter that she was pregnant when she turned herself in. All that mattered was the amount of drugs and its weight. And she, at 24 years old, got a 24-and-a-half-year sentence. So with these type of sentences that we have, it doesn't matter. It's there. It's part of the law. Stand your ground is an excellent example of double enforcement of the law. Stand your ground was supposed to allow the defense of self-defense where one feels that there is no way to retreat, or there might be the castle doctrine, one is in their own home. But we find a disproportionate level of enforcement of that law. We have George Zimmerman, who was the murderer of young Trayvon Martin, who wasn't doing any harm or anything along those lines. But that defense was allowed to be used in his case, and he was acquitted of all charges. Juxtapose that to the case of Marissa Alexander, same prosecutor that prosecuted the George Zimmerman case, but Marissa Alexander was not allowed to use the stand your ground defense, despite the fact that she was, in fact, in her home, despite the fact that she felt that there was no retreat, despite the fact that she didn't kill or hurt or murder anyone, only fired warning shots, despite the fact that she had been beat in the past, despite the fact that she legally owned the gun. We have a disparity with respect to enforcement of the laws, and this has happened time after time throughout the decades. We had the case of the Scottsboro boys back then in the 30s, who were unjustly and falsely accused of rape. They were rescued from the lynch squad only to be lynched by the legal system. We have the case of the Central Park 5 in New York, the case of the youth, 4 African Americans and 1 Latino who were accused and charged and convicted of the very, very, very brutal rape and a brutal beating of a white jogger in Central Park. Well, it wasn't until years and years and years later, after the person who actually committed the rape and the beating came forward, that they were released, but they're still waiting for their compensation from the state of New York. In the Central Park 5 case, you had the case of coerced confessions, the case of torture and interrogating youth without their parents there, for hours and hours and hours and hours on end, where people feel that they have no recourse other than to tell the prosecutor what they want to hear. We've seen some of this in Abu Ghraib and the cases, the torture cases internationally. That happens here in this country. We had cases in Chicago, the Chicago torture cases, where they used some of these same tactics against black men who were arrested for crimes. The governor at that time, Ryan, found that there was so much racism, so much abuse going on in that particular precinct in Chicago that he basically cleared out death row because he couldn't ascertain who was guilty and who was innocent, who was coerced, who was terrorized, who was tortured. And so basically he cleared out death row, as a result. We had cases of Black Panther Party members were tortured, cattle prodded to the testicles to try to get them to, give up information. So all of this has been historic, okay, from earliest times all the way down till today.